Well, there was this mom who took her kids out to a restaurant, and her 6-year-old son asked if he could say grace before they ate. So they all bowed their heads, and he says, "God is good, God is great. Thank you for the food, and I will thank you even more if Mom gets us ice cream for dessert. And liberty and justice for all, amen." Well, along with the laughter of the people sitting around them, because he was speaking in a nice, loud boy voice, there was one woman, and she replied just as loudly, "What is wrong with this country? Kids today, they don't even know how to pray, asking God for ice cream. Why, I never heard of such a thing." Well, hearing this, the little boy got very upset, threw himself into his mom's arms, and says, "Did I do it wrong? Is God mad at me because I didn't pray right?" And so the mom's comforting her son and saying, "No, you did a great job, and God is certainly not mad at you." Well, just then, this elderly gentleman walked by their table, and he reached down and he kind of whispered into the young boy's ear. He said, "I happen to know that God thought that was a really good prayer." And the boy said, "Really?" And the man says, "I crossed my heart." He said, "You know, it's never too much to ask for something in God. Too bad this woman never asked God for ice cream, because a little ice cream is good for the soul sometimes." And then he walked off. Well, of course, the mom, feeling pressured now, got the kids ice cream after they had their dinner. And when it arrived, the little boy stared at his for a few moments, and then he did something unforgettable. He picked up his sundae and he walked over to the woman and he placed it in front of her. And with a big smile, he told her, "Here, this is for you. Ice cream is good for the soul sometimes. And mine is good already." So I have to wonder, how often is it our practice, when we're judged harshly, when people criticize us, that we respond with understanding and compassion? The series that we're starting this morning is an invitation to put into practice many universal truths. We know them when we see them, we know them when we feel them, but we don't always consciously work at practicing them every day. Now, for those of you who have been on this spiritual path for a while, and I know many of you have, they're not revolutionary new ideas. You're not going to hear all of a sudden some new undiscovered truth out there, but they are a different lens, they're a different perspective, they're a different way of understanding and focusing on, and those are infinite. And having different ways of engaging with these truths is what brings them alive in greater ways within us. It's certainly my experience that after decades of spiritual study of working with these truths, that in many respects they're very simple, and yet they're very complex to live. The author of this book, Practice Makes Purpose, his name is Paul Schroeder. He received and then has now offered an insight, a lens, and ways to put into practice these understandings. He's got different suggestions, and he believes through his experience, and I've worked with this material before, so I've had a similar experience, that a natural outcome of putting these into practice is a greater sense of joy and a newly discovered sense of purpose. He discovered them when he was studying the ancient teachings from spiritual masters of the Egyptian desert. I'm always attracted to Egypt for whatever reason, so anytime I see something that comes from the spiritual masters of the Egyptian desert, I go, okay, let me explore that. And he reminds us that these are a skill to be developed, not a collection of tenets or things that you must believe in or agree to. This is really about not what we think, but what we move into action in our lives. Spiritual growth and understanding and having them be a part of your daily life is like physical training. It takes patience, it takes repetition, and it takes consistency. I knew this, and I really got to appreciate the different ways in which we could explore our spirituality when I was much more practiced and consistent with physical training. And I had a physical trainer for several years, and she would change up the routines pretty regularly. She said, the reason we do this, it works different muscle groups, and you don't get so bored. And so it's good to explore different aspects of our awareness of spiritual truths because they bring a greater sense of vitality, oftentimes more energy, more focus, more clarity, more purpose, and more joy. So the first practice that he suggests for each of us is what he calls compassionate seeing. The heart of this practice is to recognize the role that judgment plays in our daily lives, in our experience of life. And as Jesus taught, to practice seeing beyond appearances and see with right judgment. And we get closer to right judgment, at least in my opinion, when we practice compassionate seeing. So what does that look like? So here's a way to put this into practice. Number one is to pay attention whenever something makes you feel uncomfortable or seems painful or annoying, what we call in the quantum world triggers. Whenever those triggers show up, just to recognize it, not to beat yourself up about it or try and change it, but just to be aware, to be the observer of, that's really ticking me off, as Ginny Henley likes to say, if you're out there, Ginny. Number two, then, is to resist the inclination to immediately decide when someone or something is wrong or right. To just at least pause for a minute to say, I'm going to be in the question about that. Whether it's good, bad, right, wrong, I'm just going to try and observe that it's there without judgment. And then he goes on to say, become curious about your experience. Ask questions like, I wonder why this bothers me so much. Or, I wonder what's going on with that other person. This is one I've used for many years. Whenever somebody just seems to dump for no reason on me, whether it's someone out in the public eye or a family member, I have really made it my practice that my first reaction is, I wonder what's going on with them, rather than to take it personally and make it about me. And then finally, to be willing to sit for a few minutes and ask, and we're going to talk about heartfelt listening, to ask your heart, I wonder what this is all about. Help me to understand the wider and deeper picture of what's going on. One of the ways that he suggests having a reminder to put these practices into place is to have a simple mantra, and that mantra is, I accept everything I see. He said, wake up in the morning, take a few deep breaths, and say, today I accept everything I see. And when you go to sleep, I accept everything I see. Sometimes you can set, especially if you really want to hone in on this practice, just set an alarm. And every time that alarm goes off, remind yourself, I just accept what I see. It's suspending the judgment and being open to understanding in a deeper way what's really happening. Because by default, if we're not being conscious of this, we judge through the lens of our experiences. We judge based on our values, on our beliefs, and even at times our own insecurities and our own negativity around ourselves or others. Practicing accepting seeing everything in our life highlights, in many respects, the ways in which our judgments oftentimes block us from seeing through the eyes of the heart, he calls it. We talk about that quite a bit, to see through the eyes of love. And it's good to remember that accepting everything doesn't mean that I have to like it, or even that I have to think it's good or right. I don't even have to necessarily have that around it. It doesn't mean that I can't have boundaries. It doesn't mean that I can't maintain high standards, whatever those are for me, or ask for what I want. What it does call us to do is to develop a deeper sense of curiosity, to be willing to ask, I wonder what's going on, or I wonder why I'm having such a strong reaction to it. As you use this mantra, if you're willing to put it into practice, that ability to remind yourself often, I accept everything that I see, you might notice that there's times where your head objects and goes, I cannot accept that. You know, we all have our exceptions. It's like, okay, I can accept a lot, but I can't accept that. Some things are simply unacceptable. You may be having those thoughts right now. And this is really the most important time to get curious. When you've got those places where you go, I cannot accept that, that's the place where you really want to just start asking some questions and asking for inner understanding and guidance around that. Ask yourself the question, well, what would happen if I really embraced accepting everything I see? What would be the results of that? And maybe that curiosity can help you see beyond it. The second practice that he invites us into is one that really is in conjunction with seeing everything. To get to that place of understanding is heartfelt listening. We talk about listening with the heart, seeing through the eyes of the heart, but yet most of us are not really great listeners. As we go throughout our day, we're not really necessarily present. We hear, but we aren't listening with our hearts. And our ability to listen with our heart directly corresponds to our ability to truly listen to others. He gives an example in his book that he had a sister who had a miscarriage. And he didn't want to, see her be so sad. And so he kept the conversations whenever he talked to her light, upbeat, positive. And he really tried to help her see and understand some possible reasons why this had happened. After all, she was young, she could conceive again. The baby was now with God, who would not want her to be so sad. Well, as time goes on, despite all this positive encouragement, she just gets sadder and sadder. And the people around her, especially this brother, get more and more uncomfortable in wanting to talk with her. It's like, I just can't stand to hear her cry all the time. I can't stand to see her so sad, so they start avoiding. Or they just think to themselves, God, I wish she'd just get over it. Just get over it. Move on. Come on. Before I can listen, or he could listen, or any of us can listen to someone else's grief, we need to listen to our own. And we need to be willing to be present to that. We need to be willing to heal that and recognize that we are all connected through the heart. But we have to go through the heart before we can really have that compassionate seeing and that heartfelt listening. So we're going to move into a time where we just bring our attention inward. And this morning, as we go into our meditation time, I just am going to invite you to bring in to your mind and heart a situation that you would like to see more compassionately, and or that you would like the ability to listen more deeply with your heart. And so just right where you are, I just invite you to get comfortable. Maybe if you're holding on to something, just set it aside. You might want to close your eyes or perhaps focus on some point in the room so that you can really be present within yourself in this time of quiet, in this time of seeing and hearing through the eyes of the heart. As you take a deep breath and let that breath go, just let that bring you to the fullness, to the full awareness of this moment. And then imagine that thinking part of you, that part that we associate in our heads, begin to slowly drift down until it gently comes to land in the center of your chest, in that heart space of spirit. Just breathe in and out, almost if you're breathing into your heart and releasing from that same space. In this sacred inner chamber, there is a sense of safety, an awareness of that presence of which we call God, or that presence of love, the very core and essence of who we are and who we've been created from. And into this space, just invite someone or some situation that it's been difficult to see through those eyes of compassion, or hear directly from the heart. And as you're aware of your presence with it, just simply say, I accept what I see in this moment. I hear what my heart is saying. If emotions come, just let them flow through and accept those. Know that in this moment, all things are possible. Even if it feels or seems hopeless, all things are possible. Open to the awareness of that. Give thanks for this moment. Feel that sense of gratitude overflowing. Even if nothing changed significantly in this moment, feel that sense of gratitude for the awareness that as you focus, as you seek to compassionately see and understand with your heart, that the clarity, the peace, the joy, the love will unfold. And as you take another deep breath, bring your awareness back to this room, to this time, and to this place. Whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. So those early Christian practicers understood the importance of these truths in order to be able to be in a new way with one another. We're told in Colossians 3:12, since you are all set apart by God, made holy and dearly loved, clothe yourself with a holy way of life, compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, patience, understanding. I'm reading from the Message Bible because it didn't really say this in the King James. It says, put up with one another. Forgive, pardon, let go of those offenses as God lets go of whatever offenses we might have expressed into the world. Because you should act in kind. You are God in expression. But above all of these, put on love. Love is the perfect tie that binds it all together. Let your hearts fall under the rule of peace, the one that you were called in body, mind, and spirit to be, and give thanks. Compassionate seeing and heartfelt listening support and build upon one another. They are sort of co-partners in this practice. And when you can use them together, they form and open a space for empathy. It opens the heart so that we can have and feel the challenges and the pains that others are going through. And it even then further opens the path for what I call spiritual compassion. And that is our ability to love, even if we don't understand it, just to love what is. Our ability to be present for ourselves and for others. So your invitation this week is to see how often you can practice compassionately seeing and heartfelt listening. So let's do it. I'm going to ask you to do it together. We're going to start. We're going to use these mantras 3 times this morning, and then you can go, at least I got a head start on my practice this week. So up here, I accept what I see, and I hear what my heart is saying. Say that with me together. I accept what I see, and I hear what my heart is saying. Let's do it again. One for the mind. I accept what I see, and I hear what my heart is saying. And we're going to do spirit, body, mind, and spirit. I accept what I see, and I hear what my heart is saying. For that. Well, it is our opportunity now to share of our financial good with our ministry. In just a few moments here, the ushers are going to invite you to come forward and place your gift in the large basket and then receive, because we always want to be in that flow of giving and receiving, an affirmation to support you for this week from one of the smaller baskets. And on first Sunday of every month, we're just going to be reminding you, we did get a new air conditioner, so the choir people were very happy this morning that they had some cool air to practice in, and then, you know, we're going to pay for it. Eventually, we'll get it all paid off. No, we're very grateful. We've had a lot of people give some pretty good, significant gifts, and we'll just keep chipping away at it. I've got mine for this morning. Just remember, if you're going to give cash or if you do a credit card payment online, if you want it to go specifically to repay the loan, just make a note of that so that we make sure that we earmark it for the right fund, and all that we get in each month then just goes directly to pay off that loan. And we're grateful, just very, very, very grateful. So as we hold what we are offering today, or we hold the energy of it, if we give through our electronic giving programs, we just open our hearts to that flow of good abundance and gratitude and bless it together. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I have received. Thank you, Father, Mother, God, all of that.
Stand up and we'll sing our peace song together. We'll bring this beautiful program out. 1, 2.
And so as we go into this week, open and practicing compassionate seeing and heartfelt listening, we go knowing our prayer for protection together. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.